Hey, this is the Fight Nerd. I'm here now at Bellator 15 with the owner of Bellator, Bjorn Rebney. Bjorn, good to see you.
Hey, good to be here. Good night.
Definitely was. Now, Bellator second season, a lot of changes since first season. So just give us a quick rundown of what's new for season 2.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Production's new production team, spectacular fighters, great signings, magical venue alliances with the likes of Mohegan and Madison Square Garden Sports Properties and the Cordish Group out of Kansas City and Washington, D.C. and Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, just a lot of different, UB.net coming on board, Everlast coming on board with a co-branded line, lots of great stuff happening. The Hornbuckles, the Warrens, the Carcanians, the Carls, the signings, Huerta, a lot of great fighters. Just a continual step up in terms of the maturation of the brand and the development of the brand. So really cool, exciting stuff. The show is starting to look more like what I saw it in my head looking like 2-3 years ago. It's starting to actually, it's not exactly there yet, but it's starting to look like what I saw in my head, which was really cool, you know?
Definitely getting there, yeah.
Yep.
All right, now, one of the big news this season in Bellator 2 was the signing of Roger Huerta, as you mentioned. And, of course, not only getting Roger Huerta and some other established fighters, you're also getting a lot of big up-and-comers. So what's more important to you guys right now? Is it name power or building the brand of up-and-coming fighters?
They both, there's been some interchangeability. You know what I mean? Roger Huerta was a great signing for us. Hornbuckle was a great signing. Warren was a great signing. But Ben Askren was a great signing for us as well. And Patricio Pitbull was a great signing. And Georgie Carcanian, a guy I've been watching fight in the Southern California fight scene for a lot of years, he can go, and he could win 45. So, it's a combo of both of them.
All right, now, on to Bellator 15 tonight. There was a noticeable absence of Tiger Schulman's guys. So what's up with that?
Lyman's had a small injury and hasn't been going, and of course Lyman was kind of the catalyst to all of that in terms of the movement at Tiger Schulman. So I'm sure when Lyman comes back and he's completely healed and ready to rock and roll in a super fight for us, if it's back here at Mohegan, the Tigers guys will come flying back in as well.
Okay, now Lyman Good, of course, will be fighting again, right? Now he is the champion, so our champion's going to be fighting again in this tournament format or in super fights?
Well, you got Eddie Alvarez fighting the Dennis Josh Neer coming up May 6th in Boston, which should be a spectacular fight in terms of those two styles. You got Hector Lombard fighting Paulo Filo on the 13th of May in Monroe, Louisiana, on our Thursday night show, and then you've got Diego Saraiva fighting Joe Soto on the 20th in Dallas, Texas, on the show where the actual Askren Thomas rematch is going to happen as well. So Lyman, just as soon as he's ready to go physically, we'll set him up in a super fight as well, and then the actual goal being, of course, the September fight against, Askren, Thomas, Hornbuckle, or Carl, whoever ends up the last guy standing at 70.
All right, now this is the third show in the second season. So how have numbers been so far? As far as let's go actually with all the numbers. You got ticket sales, TV views. Give us all numbers. How are things doing so far?
Ticket sales. Let me start with the announcement we just made 4 days ago. Fox Sports Network. We're the highest rated national broadcast on Fox Sports Network on both Thursday and Sunday nights. And the male demographic, 18 to 54, we have done over 100% increase in terms of attracting that very desirable demographic to that network. So the Fox numbers are very, very, very strong. We got our NBC numbers back, and they're very strong as well in terms of the late-night time slot. We still haven't received our Telemundo numbers. Ticket sales here for a Thursday night at Mohegan were good. You'd always like to see it packed, and of course, I'm never satisfied unless there's people actually being turned away. But it was a good crowd for a Thursday night show at a place like Mohegan that's a bit off the beaten track. Very easy to get to Friday, Saturdays, but Thursday maybe a bit of a draw. It's all going well. It's never going as well as I want it to go, but it's all going well.
It's getting close.
I don't even know if I quantify it as close, but it's surely in the ballpark. So.
Now, last season there was a big focus on getting the Latin American market into watching the show. This season, there seems to be not as many Latin guys. You got Huerta, of course. But are you still focusing on branding in Latin American markets, or has it become more open now just to general mixed martial arts fans and just general audience?
It was an interesting crossover. We've got this Fox Sports Network audience of 92 million homes and the NBC audience of 112, and then Telemundo of 62 and Mundos, which is 35 million homes. So, what we wanted to do is when we opened it up to the general market, we wanted to go out and literally just secure the best fighters that were available any place in the world. And it didn't matter if they were from Brazil and Portuguese or whether they were from Poland or whether they were from England or Tennessee. So obviously in our first season, Deportes, the focus was really Latino. So we put a lot of effort into recruiting top Latino fighters and ended up Joe Soto, Eddie Alvarez, Lyman Good, and Hector Lombard. Every single one of our champions ended up being from Latino descent. So we haven't abandoned it, but we are surely expanding the breadth of who we're out recruiting, and it's kind of culled the numbers down a little bit.
This format could attract fighters
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that I think it can because, we've got. And again, this is my opinion and it's subjective, but BJ was number 1 in the world, and Aoki was number 2, and there's a good argument. Eddie was typically number 3 in that line in most people's rankings. So BJ loses a fight, and then Aoki loses a fight pretty handedly, and Eddie is sitting in a position now where he can fight Josh Neer and ultimately establish himself as number 1. Joe's ranked in the top 10 in a lot of organizations. So my hope is that as we keep doing the tournaments and the breadth of the coverage gets bigger and we're reaching more households and we've got more ability and we're drawing bigger gates and we've got bigger international licensing deals and everything that we're doing in terms of sponsorship continues to increase, the revenues come in, the dollar figures will get higher for the fighters because that's the way it should work. And ultimately you're going to be able to draw in even more of the top 10 ranked fighters in the world to compete. My hope would be that in seasons 4, 5, and 6 it continues to climb and ultimately you see 3 or 4 guys in the top 10 in one of our rankings of 8 different guys fighting at 70 or 45 or 55. But that's incumbent on us because the higher that guys are ranked, the more money that they deserve to make. Hence, we'll have to make the ultimate prize at the end of the 3 fights bigger.
Lines there, like if one of your champions loses before the second season's over?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is more of, I've said many times, part of the time I wear the promoter's hat and part of the times I wear the fan's hat. And the safe road to pursue would be the road that would have Eddie Alvarez sitting back and basically conceivably fighting nobody, or sitting back and waiting for the tournament to play itself out so that Toby Amata or Roger Huerta or Kerry Veneer or Curran end up fighting him. That would be the safe route. But the fan in me would like to see the Josh Neer Eddie Alvarez matchup, and I don't think that it's fair to an Eddie Alvarez or a Hector Lombard or Joe Soto to put him on the fence for 5-6 months and have him just sit. The life expectancy of these guys in this game is relatively short. You're talking about a few years in some instances. I mean, some guys, freaks like Randy Couture and others are able to fight on and on and on in a never-ending fashion, but most guys it's a pretty short life expectancy. So to fight a guy twice a year based on that, to me, it's not fair. And as a fan, I want to see Eddie Alvarez fight. I want to see him challenged. And I also, and then I'll shut up, but I also don't think boxing has this ridiculous glass ceiling. If you're not 24-0, HBO doesn't want to put you on, or Showtime doesn't want to put you on a big fight. In MMA, you got a Henderson, or you've got a Randy, or you've got different fighters who have got records where if they were boxers, they would be opponents. And yet they're amongst the top ranked fighters in the world at their given weight in MMA. MMA doesn't have that fake glass ceiling. When Eddie fights Aoki, Eddie's going to win some of the time, and Aoki might win some of the time. Or if Eddie fought Gilbert, maybe Eddie wins X amount of times and Gilbert wins. So it's a much different dynamic. I think that the MMA fans are much more accepting of the fact that when you fight the best and you lose, it doesn't mean you go back to the back of the pile. It means you're still a really good, high-quality fighter, and you lost to another extremely talented fighter.
Okay, Bjorn, last question here. Real quick, what are your predictions for this year's tournament? Who's going to take the gold home?
Boy, I don't know. I mean, Ryan Thomas looks like a man on a mission. Dan Hornbuckle is, by my account, Dan Hornbuckle's one of the better welterweights in the world. So it's going to be extremely difficult to beat Dan Hornbuckle. At featherweight, who knows? I mean, who knows? Georgie Karkanian looked like $1 million in his first fight. Wilson Hayes looks like a man possessed. His stand-up skills have gotten much, much stronger. Pitbull in his first fight, we didn't get to see a lot of him, but what we did see looked awfully good. And he comes to us with a lot of tape and a lot of experience out of Brazil fighting really talented fighters. So, and Joe Warren. I mean, let's see what happens in terms of Joe Warren's jiu-jitsu defense and see what he's able to do in the next stage of the tournament. He's obviously a world-class wrestler. Those are difficult calls. 55, you'd have to assume that Roger Huerta was our favorite. I don't know. 85 is a crapshoot. Brian Baker, Eric Shambar, Loeffler, any of them could step up at 85. I have no idea what could happen there. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to predict because going in last season I never would have predicted that Joe Soto was going to win. I would have walked into that going, well, Wilson Hayes is going to win 45, and then Joe Soto puts on a magical tactical fight against Joe Soto and wins it. I'm sorry, Joe Soto puts on a magical fight against Wilson Hayes and wins that fight, surprisingly, and goes from being a total unknown out of Central California into one of the top 10 ranked fighters in the world at 45. So, tough call. It's going to be fun to see.
Stay tuned for Bellator Season 2, basically. That's what it comes down to.
Exactly.
All right, well, Bjorn, thanks again, and congrats on Season 2 and Season 3, and hopefully many more.
Yeah. Your lips, God's ears, brother. I think we may be on our way. It sure looks like it's heading in a good direction.
All right, sounds good. Bjorn, thank you.
Thanks, man.
This video is sponsored by FindMMAGym.com. Looking for a new place to train? Head over to the best online directory for MMA gyms across the U.S. FindMMAGym.com.